Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. It's Aaron Simons, MAPS coach. So before we get started here, oh, there we are. If you guys want to see behind the screens, I got the webinar or the webcam going there. But welcome to Mega Buyer Agent Skills. We're going to do a little webinar here for you guys about the course. And it's not even going to be about the course. It's going to be a lesson from the course. So it's going to be a 30-minute call. Just so you know, it is going to be recorded. So if you hear something that you like, feel free to write it down, or if you want to copy the recording, I know we'll be able to send it out after the call as well. So who am I? Quickly, I've been selling real estate here in San Diego for 13 years. I've been working for Chris Heller, hopefully that name sounds familiar, our co-CEO, for the last 12 years on his team, managing our buyer agents, also helping run the team as well. And so I'm also a MAPS coach. Obviously, I lead Mega Buyer Agent Skills, and buyers are a little bit of a passion for me. The reason being is because buyers are your future listings. Yes, I know buyers are liars. I know buyers eat their young. I know all of that about buyers. Yet what I also know is that a healthy buyer business will ultimately lead to a healthy listing business. All right, so with that out of the way, let's jump straight into it. So what we're going to be talking about today specifically is we're going to be talking about how to get the buyer-broker agreement signed every time. So here's what's crazy to me. None of us on this webinar, right? None of us on this call would even contemplate working with a seller without a signed listing agreement. Am I correct? I mean, do any of you on this call have listings right now where you just told the seller, sure, I'll put it on the market, I'll put up my sign, I'll put it on the MLS. No, don't worry about signing a contract. We don't need to do that. No, it would be absolutely crazy. Yet, I also know that, well, all right, I won't give a percentage on how many of you I know on this call are working with buyers without a signed agreement, but if we were to look at the buyers, agents, and all those other companies, what I know is that 90% of them don't have their buyer sign a buyer-broker agreement, and to me, it's absolutely crazy. All right, so let's just say that from the beginning. All right, but let's talk about why the buyer consultation is so important. All right, now, I know we're talking about getting the buyer-broker agreement signed, but it goes back to the buyer consultation. So let's move the slide and talk about that. Here's what we know. When you agree, or when a buyer agrees to meet with you, first, before doing anything else, before getting set up on a search, before going out and looking at properties, when you meet with a buyer to do a consultation, you will have a 75% conversion rate. 75% of the time, that buyer will turn in to paid commission to you. It's a 75% conversion rate. It's absolutely crazy. And here's why. The reason it's so high is because when you meet with them, they get to learn about your value. Right? They get to understand what it is you're going to do for them to go out there and find them a home. And I'm going to talk about your value here in just a minute. All right? But just remember, 75% conversion rate. Now, we have a philosophy when working with buyers and when working with buyer leads. And our philosophy is very simple. We're going to treat every buyer lead the same as we would a listing lead. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, think about it. A buyer lead calls into the office, or it's a sign call, or you meet them somewhere, right? And you get them on the phone, and they start going on and on and on about this, that, and the house they're looking for, and you can't wait to hang up quick enough just so you can set them up on a search, forget about them, and let them come back to you when they see something they like, right? That's how most people treat buyer leads. Yet a seller lead, right? They call into the office. You're tripping over yourself because you can't get out of the office fast enough to go and meet with them. Why do you want to meet with them? So you can present, show your value, have them sign a contract, and boom, you're off to the races. All right? Now, again, our philosophy is we're going to treat every buyer lead no different than a seller lead. So what does that mean? We have a goal that with every buyer lead, we have a goal to meet with them, share with them our value, so they will then sign a contract to work exclusively with us, so we know that'll ultimately turn into us getting paid a commission. Now, here's what's interesting. So you guys are all out there working with buyers. Maybe you've got friends, maybe you've got family, maybe these are leads that you found prospecting or online. On average, what would you say their perception of us as a buyer's agent is? So for the buyers out there in the market, what do you think, what kind of value do you think they give to us? Do you think it's very high? It's not. I mean, some of the things that we hear all the time are, well, gosh, you're just the person with the magic key who can open the door. Ouch. Or they might say, well, you're just a tour guide. You'll make it convenient and easy to show me a bunch of homes at once. Okay, how valuable is that? Or how about this? We're not needed as agents because they can go online, they can go on Zillow, they can go on Trulia, they can go on whatever site they're on and get all the information. So therefore, what value do we bring? Well, I know what you're saying. Well, we're going to help them negotiate. We'll help them through the process. They don't care about any of that. They think they're their own best negotiator, right? They think buying a home is easy. Or how about this? We're just going to add to the cost of the sale, right? We're just a middleman that's going to add to the cost of the sale. Therefore, why don't we just go and work directly with the listing agent? Or my favorite, we don't do much. It's an easy market. There's not a lot of inventory out there. So because you don't do a lot, hey, you should rebate us your commission. Yeah? Or lastly, we're overpaid, right? They just think we're overpaid. But look, I mean, that's real. When you look at buyers, right? When you go to some of those consumer feedback panels, when you start to read about what people's perception of us as buyer's agent is, right? That's what they say. They say we have no value. And when you stop and you think about it, they're right. Right? Really, what value do we bring? And they're right, not because we're not valuable. They're right because they don't understand what we do, because we don't take the time, right? 90% of the time, agents do not sit down with the buyer ahead of time and tell them what their value is, right? Because what do most agents do? They set them up on a search and they wait. And in doing that, right, think about it. When you set your buyer up on a search and you sit back and you wait for them to say, oh, hey, a property came on the market, can you show it to us? Did you really have any value? No, in fact, just the opposite. What happens is you set your buyers up on a search on, through your MLS portal or whatever, and they start looking at those properties and they very quickly realize that, wait a minute, these are the same homes that I'm seeing over here on Realtor.com, and I kind of like the way Realtor.com looks better. So what you do when you set them up on a search is you actually show them that you have no value because they have access to all the same properties you do. All right? So the question becomes, what is your value proposition when working with buyers? Now, what buyer specifically am I talking about? Because look, if you're working with someone from your center of influence, they already know you, right? They know who you are. I'm sure they know you're a great agent. So do you really need to meet with that person from your sphere? Or how about this? A past client. Past client comes to you and they now want to buy a home. Well, they've worked with you before. Do they really need to meet with you? Or how about this? You're already working with a seller who's now going to be buying, right? You're listing their home and now they're going to become a buyer. Well, you've met with them once about the listing. Do you really need to meet with them again about the buying process? Or how about this? A sign call. Well, there's no way a sign call would ever agree to come in and meet with us, so I'll just go show them the house. Or how about an open house lead? Well, I met them at the open house. I shook their hand, right? They saw me, I saw them. I don't need to go meet with them again. Or how about a referral? Well, clearly they trusted the agent referring them to me, so therefore they're going to trust me. Do I really need to go meet with them? I've already got their business locked up. Do you? Or how about an internet lead? Well, forget about those. They don't even convert. No, I'm just kidding. So internet leads, right? Well, they just want to see property. Well, they're not going to come in and meet with me. But look, so when I talk about buyers, I don't care if it's someone who's part of your sphere, if it's a past client, if it's a relative of yours, if it's a sign call. It doesn't matter the source of the buyer. But we have to meet with them all first because we have to be able to explain our value. Because here's what happens if we don't. So I want you guys to imagine this scenario. And the scenario I'm going to explain to you is what I call the jump and run. So this is the sign call comes in, the web inquiry comes in, you take the call, you set up a showing, and you jump and run and you go show someone a house. Here's what happens. All right, so the buyer lead calls and you schedule an appointment. You then go and you show them the property and they love it, right? They love it, they know it's a hot market, and they want to write an offer immediately. And you're saying, yes, that was easy, right? One and done. Right? One and done, baby. They called, they loved it, we're going to write an offer, and I'm going to get paid, and this is the easiest buyer deal I've ever done. All right, so you write up the offer, and then you submit it to the listing agent, and then you find out that, oh, they weren't the only ones interested. There's now multiple offers on the property. So how excited do you think the buyers are right now? Right? They called, you showed them the property, right? They got excited about it, they fell in love, they wrote an offer, now, so their excitement's way up here. And now you have to go back to them and say, well, wait a minute, I just found out from the listing agent that there's more offers. Their excitement level just dropped a notch, maybe a couple notches, all right? So then you get back a response to your offer, and you get one of those lovely multiple counter offers asking for your client's highest and best offer. That's it, right? Please submit your client's highest and best. So now you can't tell them what price they need to write it at. You can't tell them, what terms need to be on there. It's completely blind, right? So their excitement was here. It dropped here knowing there's multiple offers. Now that they got this multiple counter offer where you can't really give them any guidance except give it your best, well, now they're down here. They're out of the screen. That's how low their excitement level is, all right? So you finally figure out what their highest and best is. You submit it off to the listing agent, and then what do you find out, right? You find out that they went with another offer. They did not choose your buyer's offer. Ouch. And guess what? You can't tell them why, because the listing agent is probably not going to tell you. Maybe it was a higher price. Well, what was that price? I don't know. Maybe it was their terms. It was cash or lease back or whatnot, but you don't know for sure, right? So here you are with buyers whose excitement level started out up here, and by the time you got done with them, it's negative excitement, all right? And so what are the odds that that buyer is going to want to continue working with you? Because at the end of the day, whose fault was it that they lost out on that deal? It wasn't their fault, right? They had great intentions. So whose fault was it that they lost out? Well, guess what? It was yours, right? It was your fault that they didn't get the home they loved, all right? And they are most likely are not going to want to work with you again. Now, take that scenario, rewind, and if you were to first meet with them and sit them down and explain to them, hey, it's a great property. In fact, there's probably others you want to see. We can look at more than one at a time. And you were to explain to them that you're in a very fast-paced market. In fact, most properties are going to have more than one offer on it, and they have to play to win. And don't be afraid, and just know that it may take more than one offer until we get one to stick, right? If you were to explain what multiple offer situations look like ahead of time, and now all of a sudden you then go out and show them property, and all of a sudden everything you set their expectations for is now happening just like you said it was. And even if they didn't get the home, and they're going to be bummed about it, are they going to blame you? Is it going to be your fault? No, they'll be bummed, but they're not going to be devastated because you explained to them ahead of time. You set their expectations, right? And probably in sitting down with them, if you were to talk about your value proposition, which I'll get to in a minute, they're going to want to continue working with you because there's a good chance that they may be able to avoid that from ever happening, right? So the bottom line is, it doesn't matter what the source of the buyer is, okay? You don't jump and run. All right, and it doesn't matter whether it's their first time buying a home. It doesn't matter if they bought 10 homes. You do not ever jump and run. Okay, so let's talk real quick about your value proposition. In other words, why should a buyer choose to work with you? All right, look, if we're all the same, if their perception out of the gate is that, well, all buyer agents are the same, you're just the tour guide, you're just the person with the magic key, I've got access to all the properties online, right? Your search isn't giving me anything new. Why should I work with you when I can work with this agent over here who's going to rebate me 1.5% of their commission? That sounds like a way better deal than working with you. So what's the answer? All right, what's your value? All right, the reason why buyers choose to work with us, all right, and hopefully your value proposition will be the same. The reason why buyers choose to work with us is because of our proactive marketing techniques to help them find a home that's not yet on the market so they can avoid the competition and get the best deal possible. Do you hear what I said? Our value proposition is so we can help them find a home that's not yet on the market so they can avoid the competition and get the best deal possible. That's our value proposition, all right? That's the script that we use. And I'm going to go through exactly how we do that, right? I'm going to go through how we explain it here in just a moment. But I want you guys to be very clear. That's the conversation. That's the script. When you're talking to a sign call who says, hey, I just want you to show me the property, the reason why they're going to want to choose to meet with you before ever seeing any properties is because what you're going to do to help them find a home that's not yet on the market so they can avoid the competition and get the best deal possible. Do you guys remember back, if you were in the even if you weren't in real estate, you probably heard about it in the news or you're reading about it. At the bottom of the market in 2008, 2009, 2010, the shadow inventory, right? You guys remember all the buyers want to know, hey, do you have access to the shadow inventory? What was the shadow inventory? Do you guys remember? What it was were the foreclosures that the banks were hanging on to that weren't yet on the market. Now, why did buyers want to know about the shadow inventory? Because they wanted to get the best deal possible. They wanted to know about the properties no one else knew about. And guess what? The shadow inventory still exists, and it always has existed. Now, my definition of shadow inventory is not foreclosures and bank-held properties. My definition of shadow inventory are the sellers who are thinking about selling their homes that are not yet on the market. All right? That's the shadow inventory. That's what buyers want to know about. Every buyer wants to know about the sellers that are thinking about selling their homes that are not yet on the market. All right, because here's what happens. So when someone's thinking about selling their home, do they just wake up one morning and say, all right, honey, let's get the home on the market. Let's get the sign out there today. Come on, let's go, choppy, choppy. We need to be on the market. No, it's a process, right? Most of the time, people think about putting their home on the market at least 3 to 6 months before they actually contact an agent, before the for sale sign goes up. Sounds familiar? Buyers are no different. Buyers go online 3 to 6 months before they're actually ready to buy. All right? So here's what you have to understand. In every neighborhood out there, all right, look at your own neighborhood. Or I'm sitting here in my office. If I look out the window here, there's a condominium complex across the street, right? When I look into that complex, I know right now there's about 1 or 2 listings for sale in that complex. Yet what I also know, that there's probably another 2 to 3 people that are right this minute thinking about selling that are not yet on the market. So the question is, what can you do to find those sellers before they hit the market? Well, that's your value proposition. This is why you have to meet with your clients. This is your marketing plan to help them find that home, right? Because just like with the seller, we go, we meet with them, we share with them about our marketing plan on what we're going to do specifically to sell someone's home, to find buyers for it. We're going to go sit down with our buyers and share with them our marketing plan, specifically what we're going to do step by step to help them find a home, to help them find sellers, right, that are not yet on the market. And you know what's interesting? Before I go through what that plan looks like, what's interesting is that most buyers assume that most buyers assume that they're going to see 100% of the available inventory online, right? That's what buyers assume. They assume that all the available inventory is online. That's the assumption. Yet what we know and what you have to really understand is that in your market, think about it, at least 15% of the homes that sell in your market never show up online. I mean, think about it. Think about how many deals sell privately that never show up. Maybe it was an agent who was pitching a property at a pitch session before it went on Caravan, and there's another agent there that said, hey, wait a minute, I think I've got someone for it, and they made a deal happen. Maybe it was a for sale by owner that they saw that ended up selling before it hit the market. Maybe it was a probate sale that ended up selling before it hit the market. Maybe it did sell at the courthouse steps before it ever hit the market. But when you start to think about it, right, when you start to think about all those sales that are happening privately that never show up online, the reality is, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, I can appreciate that you're looking online, yet did you know that you're only seeing 80 to 85% of the available inventory? Yeah, that's right. 15 to 20% of the homes that's selling never show up online. So if I could help you find a home, right, before it hits the market, so you can avoid the competition and get the best deal possible, is that something that you'd be interested in? And the answer should be yes. Okay, so what does that look like? I want you to write this down. I'm going to give you 8 points, all right? And I call this your exclusive buyer plan of action. This is what you share about when you meet with buyers, right? This is what is going to have people say, where do I sign? How do I sign up? Yes, I want to work exclusively with you. This is how you take a sign call from show me the property to, oh, wow, yeah, I want to come meet with you. All right, and here's what it looks like. So if we put on our realtor hats, we're all agents on this phone call, right? We all know how to find sellers. Let me walk you through that list, all right? So if we're looking for properties before they hit the market, number 1, write down, we can telemarket. right? Look, we can get a list of as many phone numbers as we can for a particular subdivision, complex, geographic area, and we can call through that list, looking for someone who's thinking about selling or knows of someone who's going to be selling in the neighborhood, right? That's number one. Number two, I want you to write down, you can door knock, right? Look, as I'm sitting here looking out the window across the street to that complex, if I had a buyer looking in there and they saw the two that were on the market and they said, no, those weren't the quite right units, well, what would prevent me from door knocking through that complex looking for someone who's thinking about selling or knows of someone who's thinking about selling? How about number three? I want you to write down direct mail. So if I'm going to be calling, if I'm going to be door knocking, why don't I take whatever flyer I'm door knocking with, right? Because we door knock a little flyer that says, you know, we've got a buyer interested and here's their names, here's their story. Why not turn that into a letter and mail it to the complex? All right? How about number four? We can look back over the past 3, 4, 5 years on any properties that expired or canceled or withdrew or for whatever reason never sold, right? We could contact those sellers and say, hey, you know, are you still interested in selling? If so, I've got an interested buyer. All right? How about number five? Write down for sale by owners. Look, are all for sale by owners really listed online? No. You'd be shocked. A lot of them don't list themselves online. All right? Or sellers they're not showing up in whatever online search the seller has. So for sale by owners. Because here's the reality. If you're going to be calling, if you're going to be door knocking, if you're going to be doing a direct mail campaign, if you're going to be calling the off-market properties, expireds, cancels, etc., don't you think that you're probably going to find those for sale by owners that aren't advertising themselves heavily? Absolutely. How about number six? I want you to write down your local pitch session. So if you're in an area that still does weekly pitch sessions or caravans, oftentimes you can go and you can pitch your whatever you have or whatever you need. You can stand up in front of your agent and say, hey, I've got a buyer looking in XYZ community. Do any of you have an upcoming listing we should know about? All right. How about number seven? Write down your own office or your own market center. All right. Most of your market centers have what? 150, 200, 400 agents in them. Why not, you know, go on the internet or whatever system you guys have in place at your team meetings and talk to the agents in your own office and say, hey, I've got a buyer looking here. Does anyone have any listing leads or listings coming on the market soon? And then number eight, write down the area specialist. All right, so look to see who farms that neighborhood. All right, very easy to do. You can probably find it through your MLS. Figure out who the dominant listing agent is in there and call them. Hey, it looks like you farm this neighborhood. I've got a buyer and they're interested in buying in here. They're well qualified, right? Do you have any properties coming on the market? So right there, and look, I just gave you 8 points. You can easily add 2, 3, 4, 5 more points to it, right? But the bottom line is, I now gave you an 8-point marketing plan on what you can do to find buyers or to find sellers before they hit the market so your buyer can avoid the competition and get the best deal possible. You know the best part about that plan is that you've now leveraged your buyer to go find more listings, right? That's what you've now done. You've leveraged your buyer to go find more listings. So look, in the MREA, Gary talks about the 3 L's, leads, listings, leverage. Nowhere in there is he talking about buyers because buyers typically don't give you leverage. Yet I disagree. If you work the buyer plan of action, you will now have leveraged your buyer to go out and find more listings. You're using your buyer as an excuse to get out there in the neighborhood. Now, let's talk real quick about executing the plan of action, all right? Because we can't meet with a buyer, share with them something great, have them say, yes, we want that, and then not execute on it, all right? So here's the key, all right? Simple. Let's go through each point. When we circle prospect, right? When we telemarket, it's simple. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, just so you know, in that area there's about 400 homes. I was able to find phone numbers for over half of them. In fact, I found 237 numbers. And this afternoon I called through that list. I talked to over 25 people, and here's what they said. All right, that's simple. How about number 2, door knocking? Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, I'm going to be canvassing through the neighborhood this afternoon. In fact, I made a little flyer I'm going to leave behind which tells your story. Here's a copy of it just in case you had any questions on what I door knock with. All right, number 3, direct mail. Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, I'm going to be sending a direct mail campaign to the area today. In fact, let me get your home address because I want you to get the letter the same way and at the same time as the neighborhood will. All right, number 4, expires. Here's the best thing I do. I'll go through the MLS. I'll pull up every property that expired. I'll cross-check it to make sure they didn't relist and sell. And let's say you've got a list of 7 or 8 properties that for whatever reason never sold. What I'll do is I'll take those properties and I'll send them directly to the buyers. I'll say, hey, just so you know, here are all the properties that for whatever reason never sold. Now, I don't know yet if they're still interested in selling or not, but if you like any of them, I'd be happy to find out. Now, regardless of whether they say yes or no to any of those properties, I'm still calling them because I now have a valid reason to call them. All right, for sale by owners. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, just so you know, here are the for sale by owners that I'd come across in that area. Again, if you like any of them, let me know. I'll schedule a private tour with you. Same thing with the pitch session. You're letting them know when and where it is and then when you're going to do that. Same thing with your office database. You're just very specifically telling them, here's what I'm doing. And then, of course, with the agent farming the neighborhood, same thing. You're just letting them know, I found out who the dominant agent is. I reached out to them. Here's what they said. So you have to make sure that you execute on your buyer plan of action. And you should be excited to execute on it because what you're doing is you're going to go out and find more listing leads. That's the name of the game. Now, just backing up for a moment. When you look at the plan of action and when you share it with your buyers, do you think this is what most agents are sitting down and explaining to their buyers? No, it's not. And on top of that, since they're not hearing this from anyone else, because usually they don't interview anyone else, do you think that they're probably going to be pretty excited about what you're willing to do? Absolutely. So here's, let's jump ahead to the script, because I want to share with you how we close for the contract. Now, the only script that you need to know to convert leads to appointments is the one that I've already shared with you. It's this. If I could help you find a home that's not yet on the market so you can avoid the competition and get the best deal possible, is that something that you'd be interested in? All right, that's the only script you need to know to convert leads to appointments. So let's fast forward one slide and let me share with you how at the appointment we actually introduce the buyer-broker agreement. Here's how we close for it. So assuming that I've gone through the plan of action with you, here's now the close. So Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, as you can see, we put a lot of time and effort into finding that perfect home for you. Would you agree that the proactive and systematic approach I take is what you're looking for in the agent you want representing you? And they say, yeah, this sounds great. And then I'll say, great. So in exchange for all the time and effort that I put into finding that perfect home for you, all I ask is that you commit to work exclusively with me as your buyer's agent. So do you feel comfortable and confident hiring me to go to work for you? And they're going to say, yes, we do. I say, great. So, and now here's where we have the paperwork. So I say, here's the buyer agency agreement we use that authorizes me to represent you exclusively in the purchase of your new home. Now, what it says is that I will do everything I've outlined in my buyer plan of action. And as a result, when you purchase a home, I'm going to get paid a commission. Now, here's the good news. In our market, the commission is actually paid by the seller. So in essence, everything that I'm going to do for you isn't going to cost you any money, right? Now, moving through the agreement. We do all of our buyer-broker agreements in 30-day increments. So after 30 days, either I will have you under contract on your dream home, or we're going to still be on the hunt for that perfect home for you. Now, if you agree I'm doing a great job, then of course we'll extend it for another 30 days, right? Or if after 30 days we decide to part company, well, you have the right to do that as well. So, any challenges in what I've presented here for you today? Great. Let's go ahead and sign and execute the contract. Okay, now why do we do them in 30-day increments? Here's why. Because I want to set the expectation that it's not going to take 6 months for me to find you a home. If I'm good at what I do, it shouldn't take me more than 30 days to find you a home. Now look, what it also does is that it gives me an out after 30 days. So after 30 days, when the agreement's coming up, I now have to have a conversation with the buyers. And either I want to continue working with them, or if I'm very clear that it's not going to happen, then I can have that conversation with them as well and refer them off to someone else at another company who can spin their wheels. No, I'm just kidding. I can refer them off to someone else who has more time to work with them than I would, right? We can have a heart-to-heart at the 30-day mark. All right, so that's what we do to get the buyer-broker agreement signed every time. That's our value proposition. So I hope this call was helpful for you guys. Again, I do coach Mega Buyer Agent Skills. We're launching our next program this Thursday, March 16th. It's a 12-week program. If you like what you hear today, just times that out by 12. You're going to get tons of information. All right? All the calls are recorded. right? They're available for playback. I do Q&A at the end of every call, so I can answer any questions, I can answer any challenges, any objections that you're getting. I would love for you guys to be part of the next course. So thank you all for being here. You can sign up today. There's a link, or you can go to mapscoaching.com as well. So I appreciate your time. Hopefully I'll see you on the call on Thursday. Thanks, everybody.